Hola Madridistas, welcome to the first ever podcast by your favorite Real Madrid fan page, Los Blancos Central. We're bringing you this as a way to connect with the fans in a different way. We've been running this page for the last 5.5 years, and we've been bringing to you amazing content in text format, pictures, but this is just our way to introduce ourselves on a new platform in a new way. You might not recognize us, but you have read countless articles written by me and him. And so when I tell you our names, you will know I'm Wolf09, and with me today we have LBC here. And this is welcome to the first ever podcast by LBC. So we've been writing articles, we've been posting pictures and all that, trying to give you updates. But since we've built this community over the last couple of years, I think with podcasts, it'll be a different way to connect with the fans. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Alba Kingo.
Hey guys, I hope you guys are doing well. And as we start this new season, it's pretty amazing that we get to do this podcast. And I, I hope to bring you guys whatever tactical analysis I can offer, and that's pretty much it. Why don't we just dive in right to the important stuff?
So today we will be starting with the transfer business that Real Madrid has conducted in this window. We brought two players in. One was uh, Rudiger for a free transfer from Chelsea, and the other one was Tchouaméni for about 100 million. So how would you evaluate these two transfers?
I mean, Rudiger's transfer was kind of a necessity, right? Because we've seen our backline struggle, not in this sense, not in a statistical sense, but in the sense of depth. I mean, Nacho can't keep filling all the gaps that you have anywhere in the backline, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So Rudiger was kind of a necessity. Getting him on a free was just the bonus that we needed. And as far as Tchouaméni is concerned, I feel like that was kind of an overpayment on our part, especially when you had other players available in the market. And Tchouaméni to
Yeah, I think
me, yeah, okay, go. Continue.
no, I think like with overpayment, as you mentioned, it's the market that has been this way since Neymar's transfer. But it's also the bargaining because people have seen Real Madrid pay hundreds of millions on players before with Hazard, with other players, so they know we have the capacity to pay, which makes them exploit us in a way by putting these ridiculous price tags. But it's also not just paying that much money for one player; it's also to secure the signing and stop other teams from getting it. So even though I also don't think the price tag is justified for the player, but it is the reality today in the market that this is the money you're going to have to pay for players like Tchouaméni. Like, in no way I'm saying Tchouaméni is a bad player or not worth his price tag, but it's just again sort of a situation in the in the transfer market now. And with Rudiger, I'll say that it was a long time coming. Like the player has been interested with Madrid. Madrid was interested in him. To get a player of that caliber on free, I think like if you look at it, we got two players for 100 million. So let's say you wouldn't have paid 100 million for Rudiger, but you would have paid 50. So let's just think of this as we paid 50 million each for two players, and that's how we did the business.
Yeah,
I mean,
I mean
I'm an
that.
economic student. I always think of this in a more economical way. But if you look at it, for our own
Yeah.
satisfaction, it's not a bad way to look at it.
Yeah, you can always look at it in that way. But my whole point with Chouameni and his fee is that he's always going to be a backup to Casemiro. Casemiro has age on his side. Casemiro is an undisputed starter. And as a longtime critic of Casemiro, I
Yeah, I
have
know you've
fully,
been
yeah,
huge critic of Casemiro,
and I
but
have no
see,
doubt
like
that
with the price tag,
Yeah,
yeah, he will
okay,
be the starter, of course.
he will be the starter. And I feel it's completely justified. He's improved leaps and bounds the last 2 years. And
Oh,
I'm not
definitely,
criticizing
yes.
him. He's improved a lot. So,
Well, in terms of like price tag, I think it puts a pressure on the player as well because he will be seen as a 100 million player, not as just like a 23-year-old central defensive midfielder. He will be a 100 million
yeah.
defender, like a defensive midfielder.
exactly.
So it does put pressure on him. So the thing is, like, the price tag is no way justified on any other parties, but the situation sort of demands these kind of money to be splashed. But I don't know. We'll see how he performs in the future.
Yeah,
But I really like him. Like, I saw him in preseason. He's a solid player. He's only going to get better from here on, hopefully.
yeah,
But we'll see. And for Rudiger, he's proved himself. So I'm actually very happy to see him. As long as he's not going to be a left back, as Ancelotti played him against Barcelona,
exactly.
I think
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a great signing. But and we also had some departures from the team as well. So Marcelo left. We let Isco go. We let Bale go, which was we all know was going to happen sooner or later.
We all saw that coming.
And
We all
we
saw that
also,
coming.
as much as somebody who's lived in Cardiff for many years,
Yeah,
seeing Bale leave was not something I was looking forward to. I loved that player since the day he signed for Madrid. And the
yeah.
way it ended, like, it's not justified, but again, it's good on him, it's good on us. We could gracefully part ways, I think, if we ignore the bullshit last couple of years.
Yeah.
He won the Champions League in his last season, so that's all. That's what his legacy is going to say with 5 trophies. But and Isco left as well, and he's joined Sevilla, which I don't actually like. Not for him, but for us, because it's a great player under a great coach in a good team. Because Sevilla last year, for the most part, were challenging us for the top spot before they started dropping points. So Isco to Sevilla is going to be a threatening signing, especially with Barcelona on the rise. I think it's going to be an interesting season as well.
And with Lopetegui, because Lopetegui and
Yeah,
Isco has
Lopetegui
always
is
been a threatening
like,
combination.
remember, like, when the season when he was managing Spain and Isco
Yeah,
had this crazy performances against Italy, against
I know.
Argentina,
He ran circles around Verratti. I saw that match.
and like, even when he started with Madrid in the first, like, the game against Roma, he scored that free kick and he was running the show. Like, everyone thought Benzema or Bale would take the center stage, and it turned out to be Isco. But it was all downhill from that Roma game. Mariano scored that goal. That was the worst season, I think, in my memory, where we literally were helpless in every department.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about Rudiger first, right?
Yeah, start
We've
with
seen
Rudiger.
him. We've seen him play for Chelsea in a back three, and the thing that stood out with Rudiger for me was the fact that he always made these runs into the midfield, and he was almost dictating play from the midfield into the final third. So I was just checking up some of his stats on FBref, and you know where Rudiger stands as a threat to opposition box passing. He's in the top 97 percentile when it comes to passes into final third in the box.
Jesus,
So,
that's a great stat to have in the defender, actually, because
and
when you're
he's
pressing high and you have this player in the back trying to dictate the play, it's something that Ramos used to do for Madrid. So I think
oh,
it would be good.
absolutely, yeah. This guy has the highest progressive passes alongside Alaba, and he's top 10% of all defenders in passing stats. So it is an absolutely opposite statistical profile to what we have in Militao.
True. I mean,
And
Militao distribution is not something to rave about or even discuss.
uh, Chouameni is kind of a question mark. I don't see him playing a lot of minutes this year. That's a fact because Casemiro is an undisputed starter. And with the history of injuries, Casemiro almost has none. And he plays almost all the matches every season. And he's been like this rock solid player in the center of the field. I don't see Chouameni replacing him very soon.
Anyway, moving on to Chouameni again.
Okay, so moving on to Chouameni. Okay, so let's start with his physical attributes, right? So this guy is tall. This guy is a powerful header of the ball, and he in League One, like last year for Monaco, he had I think he won. Let me check. Around 80% of his aerial duels, and compared with not centre backs, like CDMs from across the 5 leagues, he was amongst the 13% in aerial duels won. So this guy is good in the air. This guy, you can't just loop the ball above the midfield and not happen to find this guy. He'll win those aerial duels for you, which Casemiro also does pretty well. I mean, he's
Would you
great.
say like he's the kind of player who's too creative to be just a centre back, but not as good defensively to be a centre back? I hope you're getting my point. Like, let's say because his physicality would be like, oh, it's a centre back's physicality. We wouldn't argue
Yeah,
against it. But maybe he's not as good defensively to be a centre back and too creative to just be a centre back and he can play in the midfield.
I think the main point that goes against the centre back argument for him is that he's too reckless with his tackles, and he doesn't really read the game as well as you want a centre back to. See, this guy is
True.
physical.
I mean,
There's no doubt about it. But when you watch any scouting analysis or any sort of video compilation of this guy, you know that he fouls a lot. He gives too many fouls away, and he's one of the highest, like how do you say it, highest reckless tacklers in Europe for the last
or
season.
like tackles lost basically, or like fouls made.
Yeah, fouls made. Yeah, okay, yeah,
The
same
players that
anyway, right?
should leave but aren't leaving are, in my opinion, is Mariano, who's wasting his career for the last 3 years sitting on the bench at Madrid, and Asensio, who I think is a very good player, who will do amazing for, let's say, a team like Arsenal, a team like Tottenham. I don't know why I'm using these names. Like, no disrespect to those fans. I'm just saying he is a player good enough for you guys because you're like a European material anyway. But for Madrid, like we need a competent right wing because majority of our goals come from the left. Majority of our play is from the left. Vinicius and Benzema. On the
Hmm.
right, we're sort of crippled unless Rodrigo comes in, saves the day. But you can't keep having the same formula because teams are going to recognize it and trying to break it down. So I think a right wing signature is important,
Okay,
which is also a question
so
asked by many fans. By the way, like what are we doing with right wing?
as far as Mariano is concerned, I don't think he wants to be a footballer anymore because any serious footballer would leave Madrid at
Not
this
have that
point,
haircut.
not have the
I don't
haircut.
know if you saw that haircut. It looks like do you know that star sign? I think is it Aries with the horns. Yeah, a serious footballer would not have that haircut, and he would have just left. At least Bale had a hobby; he was playing golf.
Yeah,
I don't know
I
what
mean,
Mariano does.
there's one thing for sure. He's enjoying his fat paycheck. He's enjoying his life in Madrid. He's getting fatter by the day, and he comes in for like 10 minutes every season. Sometimes he scores in Clásicos, and that's great for him, but you can't have that kind of a player in your ranks. You cannot.
Yeah, I mean,
It's good
like,
for
who are
banter,
you,
but
Asensio, to just score one goal and just bask in
and
glory for the
disappear.
next season?
Exactly. No, but I have a very different point of view on Asensio. Let's just not talk about Mariano. That guy's pretty much irrelevant. I don't think Ancelotti sees him in any of his plans this season anyway.
Mm. Yeah, you
Okay,
were
so
saying
about
about
Asensio.
Asensio.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't know if a lot of people have noticed this, but Asensio statistically is on par with Rodrigo over the last 2 seasons. Over the last 2 seasons, he's contributed as much as Rodrigo has in shot creating actions, in goal creating actions, in key passes, even though he's probably played around the same or even lesser minutes than Rodrigo. The thing where Rodrigo stands out is when you're watching the match and when you're judging these players using the eye test, Rodrigo stands out because he's faster, he's more agile, and he puts in a lot more defensive effort. So I think that comes through to the fans, and Asensio just doesn't do all those things. So he's kind of a villain. He's a very polarizing figure. People who like him, they love him. The people who don't like him always use Rodrigo as an argument to kind of pit against him and to stop justifying his place in the squad. See, he's not a permanent starter for Real Madrid, for sure. At least in 2022, he is not, and he could be looking for a new club. But I wouldn't just want to push him out of the club for no reason, because he's been
yeah,
contributing as
exactly.
much as
Like,
Rodrigo has, and he's always a good option to have in your ranks. Not a permanent one, but okay, stopgap when Rodrigo's injured, when Rodrigo's not playing well, alongside Valverde, you can always have him in your ranks, and he obviously has that banger of a left foot, so
oh,
it's
definitely.
not bad.
like Madrid wouldn't want to push anyone out, like we because everything Asensio has done for the club, we wouldn't want to just kick him out or force him out like Barcelona's doing with De Jong. Just trying to throw some shade at Barcelona here, but uh, I think it's good for Asensio's sake as well that he goes to a team where he's starting every game or like most games, and he's doing what he does for Madrid. And as you said with Rodrigo, it's more of a cult figure. It becomes like imagine what he did against City. Like we're gonna be talking about this to our children and our grandchildren because this is something stuff of dreams. You don't just forget it easily. So it's again with the
Exactly.
fans as well. It just sticks in their head like he's the savior, like it becomes a figure. But as you said, on paper and in the game, both players are putting in exact same amount of impact. Even though in the end, it just sort of looks like Rodrigo is doing much more. But again, I think Rodrigo's younger, faster. He puts in more effort and defensively as well, so he would have a future. But with Asensio, again, there's other stuff. To be fair, he did miss a season through injury, like almost a whole season.
Yeah. And you know what? There's another aspect to this whole Asensio and Rodrigo thing. Our attack is so focused down the left that we almost never push the ball through the right side unless there's like a semi transition or a counter, and that
But
really
it's like the other. If you look at the other
does.
way
Yeah,
around, maybe we don't press like have an attack from the right because we don't have a competent option from the right.
that's
Because
very
it can
possible.
be it can go both ways. Imagine we have someone like Nabri or Sani on the right,
Hmm.
then you wouldn't be like, oh, just playing from one side because Vinicius was a player even like when he wasn't scoring goals in his first season. We still had that thing. We were playing from more from the left. Even his decision making in the final third was uh, shambolic. It's more about like because on the right we didn't have as good an option. It was Bale who was injured or like not putting in much effort. Asensio was out for the whole season, and Rodrigo wasn't in the picture then. He was still at Santos, I think. So maybe that's the
Yeah,
thing. Like we don't have competent option on the right.
obviously that's one of the factors that's playing into this kind of lopsided attacking flow. But I feel like Cruz and Benzema, they predominantly position themselves on the left, and that really plays a lot into our attack flowing from the left. And I mean, yeah, and at a time when Marcelo was kind of the attacking linchpin on the left side, so that was one big reason you had Cristiano. And even when Bale was in his prime, our attack didn't really happen much from the right. So I think this has been a issue with Madrid that we haven't utilized both the sides properly now for a while, and Ancelotti needs to starting to sort out something because the right wing can't
You
be
know,
there
it's
all the
like
time.
it's like if you're a right-handed person, you're never going to use your left hand to write. It's like if my
Yeah,
right hand is good enough, why do I need to? But one day when your right hand is injured, then you realize, oh my, I'm going to have to
I'm
make
left
do
with
with this
nothing.
now.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you say, yeah. So it's like you can't go into the season. As I said, like teams are going to read it. They're going to be as with Barcelona on the right. They don't care. On the left, they know it's Vinicius, so they put Araujo on the right back, even though it's not his national position, and it does an amazing job of stopping Vinicius. So it's not just going to be them. Everyone's going to be looking into this. So we would need both avenues to be open and producing at least chances. But now moving on
True.
to chances, it's we need someone who puts them away, and we need competent backup for Benzema, which we all know is not Myral, is not Latasa, is not uh, Jovic, and it's not Mariano. So who would you go in market, or what do you think is a better option in the market right now?
I mean, we obviously there's a scarcity of great strikers in the market. I would have gone for Gabriel Jesus for sure,
Yeah,
but we just didn't. We were so invested with the Mbappe signing, we probably didn't think of him before. And this
we made a lot of
sudden,
mistakes with Mbappe.
we made a lot of mistakes with Mbappe, and I think Chouameni for 80 million is also one of those things that happen out of a knee jerk from Mbappe rejecting us, and then you know
He's
this
a
the
rebound
board.
signing.
Yeah, it's exactly a rebound signing. The board just went into this mad frenzy and they started splashing on a midfielder. Okay, that's fine. That's done with. But as long as you're talking about forwards, I don't think there's anyone who can do Benzema's job better than him, or even be a backup to him. Because the way Benzema plays, there's very few players who can do that. And from the top of my head, there aren't really a lot of backup strikers who can do exactly what Benzema does. So unless and until you make a tactical shift and you make a game plan shift, you cannot replace Benzema with someone who's just you cannot expect someone to come in the 70th minute and start banking goals.
Yeah, I mean, like, or just if Ancelotti hears this anyway, playing Modric as centre forward is not going to work. Just saying, in case he wants to
Exactly.
try it again, please, like, we
Yeah,
beg you, we don't want to see that again.
he'll
But
probably
we
try
tried Hazard
Hazard,
as a centre forward,
which is
and
not going to work
it was
either.
just one. It was just 45 minutes, so I don't think we gave it a real shot because you see, like, the qualities a centre forward needs, Hazard has them. He has finishing. He can, he can make the play. He's quick. He can dribble. So I think he has those qualities. He just needs some time. We just need to give him some time. In case we don't sign anything, I think Hazard will be that backup. Because to be honest, where is he going to play if it's not as a backup for centre forward? Because I can't seem to think of a place that he will be playing or starting.
Honestly, I don't see Hazard having any place in the team right now. And as long as being a backup for center forward is concerned, Hazard has never played there throughout his career. He's always been sort of an auxiliary left winger who's moved in and broken lines and then scored some great goals, but he's never been a volume goal scorer. And
Yeah, like he wasn't a player we brought in to score 40 goals a season. That was
yeah,
given all the time. But it's a very difficult case with Hazard. Like there were injuries involved, there were bad performances, and there were people like Rodrigo and Vinicius rising to occasions. So in Madrid, like we don't just start players because they have the big name. We start them for the form, and I think, as you said, there's no like fixed position for Hazard to start in.
yeah. I mean, if he really impresses Ancelotti in the training, maybe he can start a few games out left. And but I don't see Vinicius sitting on the bench for Hazard as long as it's not Copa del
No,
Rey or
there's
something
no
like that.
chance.
Yeah, there's no chance now. As long as center forward is concerned, Hazard will only start there for a long enough time if Benzema is seriously injured, which I hope does not happen because I don't think he can do what Benzema does. And after 3 years of not performing at his usual levels and just staying on the bench for most of this time, I don't think he has what it is to come back to his best for
I
Madrid.
reckon like we still need to be in the market for either a right wing or a centre forward because it is need of the hour. It's because there's a window to this. Like you can't just think like, oh, we'll buy it when we need it. It's not that. Like we need to prepare now because you never know what can happen. Like people get injured. It's a reality, and then it's going to be a season ruined. So we can't have
Exactly.
that.
Right winger, I don't know. We could have gotten Sergio Gnabry, but that ship has sailed, I think. He's already has he signed a new contract with Bayern?
You mean
I have no
Gnabry?
idea. Yeah,
I think Gnabry has signed a new contract with Bayern, but again, it can
okay.
be just to inflate his price because Coutinho did that with Liverpool. He signed a new contract, and then within a
Hmm.
couple of months, he did sign for Barcelona, inflated his price.
Yeah.
But moving on to the season ahead, we're competing for six trophies. Well, Club World Cup is a question mark. Apparently, it might not go ahead. Apparently, it might, but still, there are six trophies to be won, and there's World Cup for players. So it's going to be a very hefty schedule for all the players. And as we know, if you remember 2018 World Cup, Modric made it all the way to the final, and the season after that, he was fatigued. Cruz, even though he didn't go all the way in, he wasn't his usual self. So would you say that it does make an impact on players playing in the World Cup?
Obviously, the World Cup always ends up being damaging to the physical status of a player in the long run. And considering the timing of the World Cup this time, it's at such an off time in the middle of the season, it will definitely impact how the second half of the season goes. And it will also impact the first half of the season, considering a lot of players would want a lot of game time, and there'd be some unsettling talks in the dressing room regarding that, especially the likes of Asensio, Rodrigo, maybe Camavinga, Chouameni, because these players are fighting for high stake places in teams that are filled to the brim. So there's going to be some talks regarding who plays how much, and then absolutely after the World Cup, you will see fatigue set in, you will see injuries. You can see injuries during the course of the World Cup, which is very common because these matches are being played in Qatar. Again, that's like the hotbed, a hot zone, whatever
Yeah.
you call it.
I mean, they have
And
ACs in the stadium, so we only know it's going to be not as bad, I guess, for the players. I mean, I wouldn't
I don't
mind
know how
playing in a
much,
stadium with
yeah,
ACs,
absolutely. But
but
I don't know how much of a difference an AC makes to the stadium. I mean, I don't know what
because
kind of ACs
it
these
has never
Arabs have been
happened.
putting in. Yeah, it has
Like
never
we've never
happened.
had
So
a World Cup in the middle of winter, but
yeah,
hopefully it's a good tournament to watch. But again, as we said, like the incentives of players changes and managers, because for managers, it's they don't care about the World Cup. They want their season to be good. So they will be
yeah.
choosing the players they know or they think will be the best for the team. But again, the players will have different incentives. They want to do better. They'll ask for more game time. Even on the pitch, they might have different, decisions. Like if you want goals, maybe you're trying to be more selfish. It will happen, but it's again, if the World Cup was in the middle of the usual time, middle of summer, we probably wouldn't have these many problems going into the season. Like yeah, in the beginning, players are fatigued, but through the season, you get a better picture. Now it's like everything's unclear what's going to happen. So I mean, Ancelotti, that's why he needs to manage the players well because there is fatigue. Then there is also players' forms, and then giving chances to all the players while we're competing for trophies. And Ancelotti is a kind of person who's been known to not rotate the squad as much.
Oh yeah, we saw a lot of that last season, right?
But again,
Him
as I
not
mentioned
rotating the
earlier,
squad
that
at all.
yeah, as I said earlier before we started the podcast, like Ancelotti is a Madrid manager, and Madrid managers don't play for the future; they play for the present. It's like you are here today, you don't know if you're going to be there tomorrow. So unless you do well today, you're not going to be here tomorrow. So that's why Ancelotti doesn't have the luxury to just lose any games or like lose trophies. It's more like if he doesn't win anything, he's gone the next year. It doesn't matter what he did the year before.
But I still
So I
feel
think that's also one of
Ancelotti,
the things.
yeah, and I still feel Ancelotti is going into the season very relaxed, considering the kind of trophies we won last year. He's gonna try and experiment, and he knows he has this job for at least a year, unless
Yeah, I
we
mean, like he's not going to
start.
be sacked mid-season,
Yeah,
of course, but we
yeah.
never know the next year.
I think he's still pretty relaxed, and I might even go as far as to say that he's a bit casual, not signing a backup striker, letting go of every other striker that we have, not signing a right winger, and then yeah, I feel like he's a bit too relaxed going into the season. And it's true, in Madrid you can't rely on your past laurels or what you did the season before. Every season you start like this is going to be a last season if you don't perform.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
so
I do get the point of him not rotating, but given the World Cup and all the tournaments, I think it is extremely necessary. Like, look at Modric; like he played almost every game last season, and for some reason he looked like he was aging backwards. But it can't go on forever. He's 38. He's gonna take a toll on his health. So it's gonna be interesting how Ancelotti manages the players because we in midfield is packed right now. I think we have excellent options all over the pitch. But again, it's the forwards and the defense, how he's going to set up. Do you think Ancelotti, like we will be seeing this three-man backline for Madrid? 'Cause as you said, Ancelotti hasn't played this ever. I don't know about
I'm
ever.
not,
Maybe like in Italy.
I'm not sure, but the circumstances and the situations they can lead us to a three-man backline. It's obviously not a certainty because he has preferred four people at the back, and he will continue to do that this season, at least for the start. If we don't see results, he might switch to a three-man backline with a midfield of Casemiro, Cruz, Modric, and Valverde, with a three-man front line of Vinicius, Benzema, and then third place is always up for grabs. You can have Asensio there, you can have Rodrigo there, and with Valverde, you can actually play Asensio there because then he takes up all the wing space, and Asensio can actually cut inside and shoot at the goal more often rather than just being sidelined on the right.
So something like a 3-4-3.
Yeah. So the main problem with the 3-4-3 is that you can't play Mendy in that
Mhm.
in a 3-4-3 setup because you have to have Vinicius in the lineup. That's a fact now. And on the left side, if you see Vinicius, Cruz is not a great defensive cover.
No,
Alaba, I don't know how good his recovery runs are, but they're not better than Mendy. Mendy is absolutely the best left back we have in our ranks right now, for sure. Maybe
no,
not going
definitely.
forward,
Yeah.
but as a defensive asset, Mendy is he needs to play. He needs to play a lot of games. So again, that's one thing that stops us from going into this three-man backline. And we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
No, an interesting fact about Ancelotti is, he's won five, like the top five leagues, but
Yeah.
he's only ever won it once. Like all the trophies, he's
Yeah.
only won it once. So it'll be interesting to see how he's going to go through this season because he needs to defend the La Liga title. And if you look at the last 20 years, I don't think we've ever won the La Liga twice in a row. So for
Oh yeah.
Madrid, for Ancelotti, he's never won, like we haven't won the league twice in a row, and he has never won the league twice in his career. And I think we ended up on 86 points last year. So to think like, oh, 86 was a winning total last year, it might not be this year. Like going to 86 points isn't as easy, but it's not as difficult as well because it's going to be depending on where Barcelona finish. Because as I said, they are a title contender. It's the job will
Barca.
be to outscore the
Yeah.
team.
I mean, Barca are fighting tooth and nail for the title this season. Let's not talk about how bad their financial situation is because we don't really get to know the details of that.
Yeah.
And if they
Let's
somehow
assume that
manage,
everything will be signed. Like let's just assume that
yeah,
every player will
yeah.
be signed and registered.
And if
But
you
then
add
that makes it.
Bernardo,
Yeah.
yeah, if you add Bernardo
Mhm.
Silva into that mix, it's a lethal team. You just can't escape them if they have Bernardo Silva,
Yeah, because they
Usman
have.
Dembele on form, and then they have Lewandowski now, and who plays
I
on the
mean,
left for
if
them?
you look at the forward line, there's Lewandowski, there's Ansu Fati, Dembele, Ferran Torres, Depay, Aubameyang. I don't know if I'm forgetting someone, but it's packed. In the midfield, it is like they have quality all over the pitch, and in defense, they signed Kunde, Christensen. I don't know if I'm forgetting someone that they signed because they signed a lot of players.
They,
Ter Stegen is quality. He's not been at his best what he was like a couple of years ago, but he's still a competent keeper. And yeah, like if they sign, like they register everyone, they are going to be title challengers. So our job will be to beat them on the points. So 86 points might not be enough this year, and actually they will have to think about that. So again, that makes it issue of rotating the squad. He might not want to go for it because he will know that it is going to be a difficult thing to lose points or like even risk losing points against smaller teams.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think this is going to be a 100-point season for Barca because
It wouldn't be
Xavi is.
surprised like if he's done wonders since he's signed all the players. Because after the January window, we've seen completely different Barcelona. They've barely lost any points. The beat is 4-0. Probably one of the worst games I've seen Real Madrid play this like last season.
The
Because
preseason
after
was
the
no
PSG
better.
first leg, the first leg against PSG, you think like, oh, you can't do worse than that until the
Yeah,
Barcelona game came along. But the two key takeaways I would like to draw from the preseason was that like Barcelona look very good, and the second one being we need Benzema backup because we just cannot survive without a Benzema backup.
who would you rather have instead of Benzema? I mean, just imagine a scenario where
As a
Benzema is
backup.
injured. Yeah, yeah. Who's your choice?
Well, as I said, like if let's say imagine we don't end up signing anyone, I would want Hazard to rise to the occasion and do the job because I think he has the qualities to do it. But if we were to enter the market, as you said as well, Jesus was obvious choice. Gabriel Jesus is doing great at Arsenal, and he's always been a great player for as a centre forward or just out and out striker. He's been quite good. One thing that really upsets me is that Jovic couldn't be that player to take over from Benzema because I really rated him when he was in Bundesliga,
I
and it
never
just
thought
never
he could
worked
be
out.
that player. I wrote a post. I mean, a lot of people bashed me for being pessimistic and whatnot. When we signed, I don't even know. I don't think we even signed Jovic at that point. But it was when we were in talks to sign him, and there were rumors going around. So I wrote a post. It got popular for all the wrong reasons. And
I mean, it's like he's a cold striker. Benzema is somebody who drops very deep, makes a play, takes the team forward with him. Jovic is your cold striker, your classic poacher. I mean, there's no doubt that he's good in the air. Like he has all the striker qualities, but not a centre forward qualities. You know what I mean? Like he plays like a false nine, drops deep.
yeah, but he was
So
he was
as a yeah,
in a sense a one season wonder, right? He had one great season at the top. You can't just splash 60 million on a player who's
and he
just
wasn't
had
even he
one
wasn't
good
even
season.
top. Like it was more like in Bundesliga, wasn't
Yeah,
even at the top as one would say. But I really liked him as a player, and he was young. He was exciting to watch, but I think he just didn't fit, or like just didn't work out with Madrid.
do you know who can
Um,
do well at the center forward stage in case Benzema is absent? I think Rodrigo is a great player to take that role. I think Rodrigo can play
it's an
center
interesting
forward.
choice.
Yeah,
I've actually never considered because I see all this. It's like it's a players like you just fit in your mind as a winger or like right back or left back something. It's very difficult to imagine them doing anything else. But I think it's an interesting choice to have Rodrigo because yeah, he can make play in the middle. I don't know about his play in the middle because I've never seen him play there.
yeah,
But
because
uh,
he was a striker back in Brazil. He was
mhm.
essentially an inside forward who would stay on the left initially and then drive into the box. So he has a great sense of positioning himself in the box. We saw it with that Man City goal where he just came out of nowhere and just shadowed I don't know which
Yeah,
player
that was.
and just overtook him and scored that goal. That was insane. That got us back into the match. Rodrigo has that box sense. So he can play inside a packed box and he can make great runs. Obviously, he's a good dribbler, and I don't know if he can hold up play as well or even close to Benzema, but he's definitely a great
Would you
option.
say he has the physicality of a centre forward or like a striker? Because he
I don't
looks more
think,
like a winger.
yeah, I mean, he's nimble in that sense. He's agile and stuff, but I don't think modern center forwards need to have a lot of physicality. Benzema isn't very physical either, and he still manages to do his job.
Dream signing I would have liked to have is a player I really enjoy watching is Jamie Vardy, and
Oh,
I think he's an excellent striker, and he can make play. He has mean right foot. He can score from anywhere. But again, I don't think he'll leave Leicester. Also, I mean, for a backup, he's not a bad choice if you think about it. Yeah.
who is
And
playing what?
sorry, I was cutting you off. No, so like he was playing in Sunday League, working as a handyman. He made
Oh,
it to like Leicester, then he made it to to play Champions League football. So imagine him ending it up at Madrid would be the kind of dreams we talk about in football, like the sky's the limit, that kind of thing. It would be
I
a great
mean, there's
story for
a
him and for football.
isn't there a movie being made on this guy, or has it been made already? There's
I
something
actually
in the
have no
works.
idea.
There is something in the works.
There has to be because yeah, as you know, I love stories. I love writing them. I love seeing. I see stories everywhere. So somebody like Wadi ending up at Madrid would be a dream scenario for him and for like fans as well because it just shows that dreams can happen.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's great from a storyline point of view. But yeah,
Mhm.
I still feel that there's a lot of other players who could end up at Madrid and who did not end up in Madrid this transfer window. But that's that. I mean, we can just
Yeah, that's neither here nor there. So it's more like I don't think we're in the market anymore because the reports suggest we are not going for any striker signings. So
uh
that's a bummer. But things can change anytime. It's like you see a good opportunity, I think Madrid will take it. So let's keep our hopes alive for that. And now let's move on to the last section, which is the preview for the Super Cup. As we said, like the winner of the Champions League plays against the winner of the Europa League. Where does the winner of Conference League go? What do they do? Like, what's the point of Conference League then if there's not going to be a Super Cup thing?
Do they qualify for the Europa League next season? Is there something in
Yeah, they
provision for that?
qualify for Europa League, but again, it's a European competition, even though it's a third tier. Do you know what would be a great scenario? The winners of Europa League and Conference League play each other to play, the winner of Champions League in the final. That would be a better format, don't you think? So everyone gets a chance to play there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just can't discount teams playing in the Conference League, right? And
I
when
mean,
it's
that
a
exactly.
Mourinho
So if
side,
you have
that
made the tournament,
yeah, and if it's a Mourinho side, you never know. They might come out as winners of.
they might end up winning the whole thing.
They
Exactly.
might end up winning the whole thing. Yeah.
The
So
guy's never lost a final in his life, so I wouldn't bet against him. But yeah, no, I think
absolutely.
that would be a better format because see, Super Cup is a kind of a trophy. If you win it, nobody gives a shit. Like nobody's gonna rave about, oh, we won the Super Cup, like unless you are some
Yeah.
typical fans. But if it's if you lose it, everyone's gonna give you shit. Like
It's a
there's no
community
upside
shield,
to
right?
it. Exactly, it's
Yeah.
like community shield. Like nobody's gonna praise you for it, but they're gonna give you a lot of shit for losing it. And
Exactly.
but again, it's a trophy. It's part of the whole bunch that you go with. Like we won two out of the three big trophies, and now it's reward for winning that. So, I mean, yeah, we everybody would want to win that trophy, but again, not winning it would just it's just there's just downside to it.
And with the form Frankfurt are in, I mean, it's even worse if we end up being on the loser's side.
Oh,
They got
definitely.
hammered. They got hammered by
I
Bayern
mean,
6-1.
you just know
Uh,
like they're gonna rise to the occasion and they're gonna put on the show. But moving on to the more technical stuff, in terms of starting lineup, Ancelotti had already said that the team that would start against Juventus in the preseason would be starting against Frankfurt in the Super Cup. So that would mean the team that essentially started the Champions League final, which was we all know like the front three of Valverde on the right, Vinicius left, Benzema center, usual KCM, and the usual back four. I think it's a good enough team because Ancelotti doesn't want players who weren't in the Champions League last season to be part of the team because they think he still thinks it's part of the last year's trophies. Uh, do you think it's a good enough lineup to go through? Because I would like to see Rodrigo start this time actually, because just to give him a shot.
I mean, Valverde starting there is a good enough option for me. Rodrigo can always come in the 60th minute, 70th minute, whenever Ancelotti sees fit to get him in the team. But Valverde just gives you that bit more dynamism in the midfield. And Frankfurt play a 3-4-3. Go ahead, man.
Sorry, no, I'm
Yeah,
saying Kostic isn't playing, so he used to play left wing, I think. So the reason Valverde started in the final against of the Champions League was to keep Luis Diaz at bay, and it would just provide extra protection on the left to Carvajal. So I think Valverde not starting wouldn't be the biggest issue in the world because it would just mean like we're more competent in attack from the start if Rodrigo's starting. So, but again, I think Ancelotti is going to go with his usual Champions League final starter.
yeah. I mean, you can always make a case for Rodrigo starting because he's obviously the better attacker of the two. But I still feel that against a four-man midfield that sometimes ends up being a five-man midfield, you need extra legs in the midfield, and Rodrigo out wide is not my highest priority. I'd rather have Valverde out wide, who can also tuck inside and then let Carvajal make runs in space behind the three-man backline, rather than Rodrigo struggling on the right and us struggling in the midfield. That's not a great option for me.
I mean, nobody's denying what Valverde did in the Champions League final. He on
Yeah.
the right, he did made an amazing play, the assist to Vinicius. Did you see like he has a frame of that assist from the final? Like it's like the usual football pitch design, and there's like dots Liverpool players and him, Vinicius, and like a straight line that goes to the for the assist.
Oh, I had no idea.
He's made
I
like a
had no
frame.
idea.
He made a frame of it and put it in his house. I would do the same, honestly. If I made that
Same.
assist in the final.
And that wasn't
Um,
even an assist, right? He wanted to shoot, and that ended up
again,
getting to
there's a big argument about this, and I'm very touchy that because I know it was a driven cross, so it makes sense. It came from the laces. But people will be like,
the.
no, it was a shot, which I don't actually think it was a shot. But
I think
only
he
Valverde knows, and he's
didn't
not
he
going to
say
admit
that in
to
an
any.
interview? He admitted to it being a
I,
shot, isn't? Did he?
I actually don't know, but as far as I want to believe, because you see, even though there's something not true, I would sometimes like to stay in the dark and just convince myself that that's the truth.
Yeah, I
So,
mean,
as they say, like ignorance is bliss. I'm just going to ignore
oh,
that. Well, it was
that's
shot and
exactly
just
what I
be
was
like,
gonna say. That's exactly what
ignorance
was
is bliss.
in my mind. Yeah.
Looking forward to tomorrow's game. I think it's going to be a very interesting game because Frankfurt is a kind of team that can surprise you. If people remember the game against Barcelona, the goals that
Oh,
they
I love
conceded,
that game. I love that game.
yeah, like the second game goal from I think it was Borre. It was just a rocket. Like I don't know how he flew in, just boom, it was in, and so they can't surprise you. It's not going to be an easy game. Madrid is going to be on their toes the whole game, and it's a formation we're not used to playing against 3-4-3. So it will be interesting if that's the format they go with, or they're going to have something new that they're going to come up with. But I think our team is good enough, decent form, not the best, but good enough to go through with it. And Ancelotti will raise his eyebrow and probably will score three in the extra time. You never know.